We used to bass fish in little farm ponds, and we had access to a lot of farm ponds because everybody in the community knew that my dad liked to fish. There was some catch and release practice, but back in those days, we were keeping the nicer fish, and we would fillet those bass, and they were really tasty. As I became a teenager, I was really interested in hunting, and my dad took up hunting so he could go with me, and we ate everything that we harvested, everything that we took. My dad, he had a temper, and it wasn't like an everyday thing or anything like that, but man, when he got mad, I mean, he could yell, he could really, and I respected him. I think that was part of it. Maybe that was part of it, that I started internalizing some of that I was, I was the problem. I was a defect or whatever. And, he recognized that as I got a little bit older into my teenage years, that I was struggling with a few things. When I was taking flying lessons, I started taking flying lessons when I was about 16. Got my private pilot's license when I was 17. Immediately, I began to work on my instrument rating because I was moving into trying to become a professional pilot, and which I eventually did. But, I was with this one instructor that's what he did. He yelled and he screamed, and I was having a hard time grasping all of the concepts. So when you're working on an instrument rating, what that means is you have to be able to fly the airplane without being able to see anything outside. You have to rely on your instrument panel to tell you, what kind of attitude the aircraft is in, how fast you're going, what your altitude is, and to keep the aircraft flying, and not crash into things. I was working on that, and I was having some difficulties as a 17-year-old comprehending everything. And this guy would yell at me, and when he yelled at me, guess what? I would just shut down. I would stop thinking right then. And so my dad went and had a talk with that flight instructor, and that talk that he had with that flight instructor made a huge difference. And I ended up getting my instrument rating. I went on and got my commercial, with the same flight instructor, got my commercial pilot certificate in the airplane. On my 18th birthday, got my commercial helicopter license. I had my first flying job when I was 19 years old as a co-pilot. It was a corporate aviation department. It was when textiles were booming in the Southeast particularly, but all over the U.S. Back in the early 80s. And I got on with that aviation department. They had a private jet. They had two King Air 200s, which are twin turboprop aircraft that are really nice. And then they had a nice helicopter, a Sikorsky S-76, and I flew co-pilot on all of these. Well, I did not fly on the Falcon 10, which was the jet, the company jet, but I flew co-pilot on all the other aircraft, including the helicopter. And anyway, that was my first flying job. So my dad going and having that one talk with that flight instructor, and my dad mellowing out, made a big difference for me.